folks, Captain Mike here from Hogy Lure Company. I'm here back at the dock to talk about a film shoot we recently did with Salty Cape TV, where we targeted bluefin tuna on spinning gear. So this is sort of the part two, if you will, because we had two techniques going on that day. One, a top water slider, and what I'm here to talk about now is the harness jig, the Hogy harness jig that imitates a sand eel using their kerplunk method. So this shoot, this portion of the shoot, part two of the shoot, is a textbook example on how to kerplunk a bubble feed and a whale fishing just adjacent to life when you're out tuna fishing. Now let's talk about the outfit here and the terminal tackle, which is noteworthy with this particular lure. Now, we get a wide range of fish in terms of size and species when you're talking tuna here at Hogy HQ here on Cape Cod. We get small tuna, say yellowfin and bluefin, starting at 30, 40 pounds, and then go all the way up to the big bluefin north of 72 inches. So I like to have an outfit that sort of puts me in the zone for the full spectrum of fish, but one that airs at around that 100 pound, 150 pound mark, which is this outfit. Again, it's 7 feet, medium heavy to heavy. Here I have with me now the Hogy 7-foot tuna spinning outfit. Now this rod sort of embodies everything I like in a tuna spinning rod. For starters, it's got a shorter butt section. I like to fight a fish off my hip with no belt. That gives me the ability to use my core muscles and my leg muscles when fighting a fish. Also, it's a lot easier to clear the rod when I need to move the rod to clear outboards or boat side landings and everything. It's a very ergonomic set, and lastly, it keeps my rod at a sustaining angle in terms of energy. The larger foregrip allows different positions to distribute the muscle load. Now the rod itself is fairly soft and fairly parabolic. Now it's going to allow for a wide range of casting scenarios. You can, with a little bit lighter line on your reel, you can squeak down as low as 2 ounces, but you can throw up to 8 ounces with this rod if you're going to lob a cast. Now the reel I have in this outfit is a Stella 18,000. And depending on my outfit, I'll either have 80-pound test braid or 100-pound test hollow core. And my line connection can be either a loop-to-loop connection, wind-on leader to my fluoro. And if I know the fish are bigger in the area, I might go up to 130-pound test. Or if I know they're smaller, I'll go down as low as 80-pound test fluoro. But either way, probably 100-pound test fluoro is my average if I'm targeting bigger bluefin tuna. And this is just a nice ergonomic outfit, just go-to turnkey. Now, lastly, the terminal connection is the lure we're fishing with today is the Hogy harness jig, and there's a ball-bearing swivel built right inside the head of this lure. So the beauty of this lure is you can just tie directly to the lure, minimizing the terminal gear, and you're about as stealth as you can get with this lure. So let's talk lures for a second. Here I have the Hogy harness jig, and this is a very versatile lure to have rigged on your spinning outfit. You can cast this thing, you can vertically jig this thing, and you can do the in-between, which I call the kerplunk. You cast and then you fish that swing as it hits the water, so you're going to get all levels of the water column. You can bring it back to the surface and let it swing back down around. So you're fishing the swings, and that's what we're doing today. Now we're out and about, and as this day starts off, there's just tons of life, but no actual crashing tuna. So you'll see whales bubble feeding in the area, birds, food, just stacks of bait and stacks of life. So you want to get adjacent to that life. And what I like to do, I call it the kerplunk technique. You just lob a harness jig right into that life and just let it sink down, reel it up a little bit, sink down, and a lot of times on the drop, so you want to be careful. You get that boom boom, that subtle hit, because the tuna is coming up from below. So you just want to be ready to rock and roll. Now this harness jig is great, again, because you can cast it, you can fit, so you're playing all levels of the water column, and it's a perfect imitation of a sand eel. Now I'm just going to stop for a minute and talk about that sand eel imitation. This color pattern is matching the hatch, the olive and silver color pattern. But a lot of folks like that high vis, that hot pink or the hot green to stand out. So their theory there is if the fish are scattered, you have the ability to call them in with brighter visibility. But me personally, I'm always a match and hatch kind of guy. Now the approach here is really simple. Be at the right place at the right time. This is not a situation where you'd be running and gutting. You just want to be drifting and idling and in the general area, and when the bait comes to you, you're ready to go with the kerplunk. And yeah, you can shorten the gap, but I feel like in a situation like today, running and gunning can sort of put the life down. You just want to be slow and chill, that walk and gun mentality, just sort of idle, close the distance to what you can close the distance on, and just pitch and kerplunk, and there you have it. So tells, I feel like we've already talked about tells a little bit, but again, we're not seeing crashing fish, so we're using what we have available to us. We have side scan sonar, looking for tuna. We're looking for whales. We want to be in the area where there's lots of whales bubble feeding, a lot of vertical birds, that cyclonic action. Birds hanging high in the sky, watching some, just big plumes of bait on the fish finder. The name of the game today is stay with the life. Let's just take a minute to talk about the retrieve. Now, yeah, sure, you can fish a harness jig fast and you can fish it slow. But in my opinion, the Hogy Harness Jig fishes best at super slow speeds. Don't forget, the majority of this lure is soft plastic, so just the rocking of the boat and the slow reel, you're going to have a very natural undulation with the tail. Now, if you go real fast, it's going to be sort of that more vibrating sort of hum. And to me, that's not natural. If you look at a sand eel in the water, they're just sort of slow, lazy, long, longitudinal movements to their tails. So, fish these baits slow. So I'm going to cast it out. Now, while this bait is sinking and you're not retrieving, it's sinking, while it sinks, that tail's just going to do its thing. You have the flared gills of the Hogy Harness Jig, so it's going to sort of take a circuitous route down and have very lazy. The bait's just going to look alive. And when you reel it back up to set up for the drop again, slow and low. Just give it a crank, let it sink. And again, I mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again now. You want to pay super close attention to the slightest changes in your line, because a lot of times as you're dropping, the fish are going to feed from below, and the pickup will feel very subtle. Sometimes it's as light as like a scup bite, or feels like you got cut off. If you feel any lightness in your line, just crank down on it. More times than not, if your line feels light, there's a fish on the other end. You want to crank it in before you miss that fish. So let's take a minute just to talk about the hookup. A lot of times using the kerplunk method, the hookup ends up being very vertical off the side of the boat. So ideally you want to be using this approach with the boat being downwind from the lure, so everything's drifting in sync, as opposed to, you don't want to be drifting over the line. But even still, a lot of times the hookup is a very vertical situation, and you want to be ready to position the boat so the fish hits it and takes it onto the boat. You want to be able to pop an engine of gear and spin the boat around to clear the outboards. But after that, it's textbook fighting scenario. Keep the fish in the aft end, coordination with the captain and the angler to communicate to bring that fish boat side. Let's talk end game. So pretty much textbook scenario. You have an angler fighting off the aft corner, a skipper at the helm, and a gaff man ready to go. You want to keep that fish, aft while you deal with the final. A lot of folks call it the death spiral, where the fish starts spinning around the boat. When it comes time for the end game, you want to have the boat downwind from the fish, so you're drifting together. You're not going to drift over the fish. Gaff shot to the head, pop the hook, get the fish on ice, and you're right back at it.